What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Luciferian Church. It's your man's Pastor Casper. And I just wanted to take a little bit of time out of my day to make a little educational video. I know a lot of people are unsure, uncertain, a little confused about what we're doing here and the legality of it. Sometimes even after I've explained it. So I just wanted to go ahead and make a video really thoroughly going through kind of the case law of how this works, because a lot of people they don't seem to believe that what's real is actually real, because they're so used to the deception that we've all been living under since I've been born, for my whole life, at least 32 years. But here's the thing, all right? The First Amendment, which is in the Constitution, right? And the Constitution is the foundation of all law in America, meaning that if any state law or any local law conflicts with the Constitution wins, not the state, okay? If the state wants to win, they have to leave the United States of America and become their own country. Them's the rules, okay? Get with the fucking program. But, so beyond us having the First Amendment right to practice our religious beliefs, not just to hold the religious beliefs, but to practice them, so long as my religious beliefs do not violate your constitutional rights, okay? Which they don't. A good example of a religious belief that would violate a constitutional right would be the Christian belief that cannabis, psilocybin, salvia divinorum, peyote, ayahuasca, that these are all the devil's magic, right? And therefore, nobody's allowed to do it because it's Satan. Well, that would take away my right to practice my religious beliefs. You're allowed to believe that. You just can't stop me. And you can practice that. You can practice thinking that it's evil by not doing them, right? But you can't practice those religious beliefs by stopping me from doing my religious beliefs. You understand? And if you still don't believe me, okay, and you think this is just unprecedented, this is crazy talk, right? The Native American Church, and understand, right, that the Native American tribes are not well versed in American law, right? I think anybody with a scent of sense understands that, okay? Yet the Native American Church did walk away with a win against the federal government when fighting for their right to use peyote, an extremely strong psychedelic substance, within the context of their religious beliefs. Now, of course, they didn't get a full win, right? Because the First Amendment says that the government is forbidden from interfering with our religious practices. And instead, when it came to the Native American Church, the federal government decided that, yes, they could do it as long as the federal government got to make all the rules and monitor it and all that craziness, right? It's just a complete overstep, what ended up happening. But at the same time, it was less of an overstep than throwing them all in jail for practicing their religious beliefs. So it was a little bit of a win, but it wasn't all the way to the finish line, all right? And that's what we're trying to do. We're driving for the finish line. We want that. We ain't trying to hit it to the green. We want to get that hole in one, all right? So I'm going to shoot a little bit of case law out there, just to kind of build a better picture, right? Because when you just bring up the First Amendment or just bring up the Native American Church, okay, well, now you got two things, but that's still only, it's not enough for everybody, you know, all right, whatever. So, well, check this out. In the case of Murdoch versus Pennsylvania, you can go ahead and look that up. the Jehovah's Witnesses were going around in Pennsylvania selling their religious goods, right? Now, the state of Pennsylvania saw this as, some sort of commercial activity or something, right? So they wanted to tax them, right? Well, they're not allowed to do that. So it was decided in the Murdoch versus Pennsylvania case that exactly what I just said. They're not allowed to do that. It's a religious goods. It's spreading awareness of their religion, the things that they shared. In their case, written literature, right? Which in our case, we have the living literature. Okay, the Christians have the written word, written by a man. We have the living word, right? The source of creation that lies beneath us all, Mother Earth, sends up these living organisms that provide for us. There's a reason we call them teachers and stuff, right? Paths to enlightenment, things like that, right? Because these are living, this is the living word of our religion. And we can put into some writings, as an individual Luciferian, where this has led me to be able to, but this is all just word games, word play. As soon as the language changes and they look back to read what I've written, it could mean something completely different. But you can always go back to the source, because we practice a living word. And so there's really no difference between them selling literature and us selling our living literature. Okay? Now, let's take that a step further, okay? Because another very interesting development that happened very recently, all right, is, and this may sound funny at first, like, what does that have to do with what you're saying, all right? But the State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin case that was recently seen by the Supreme Court. And you're like, what? That's a Second Amendment issue, isn't it? Well, yeah, it was. But the language, the result that the Supreme Court ended up issuing is that from here on out, whenever we are trying to decide whether or not something, to do with the law, whenever we're trying to figure out what that law meant, right, we have to go not only by the literal text, right, which the literal text of the First Amendment is what? That the government is forbidden from interfering with our religious beliefs and practices, okay? But that also, after that, we have to take in the historical context of the time that the law was written, right? So when the First Amendment was written, it was part of a wide, all around the world, many different religions and many different belief systems, or whatever you may want to call it, did indeed use cannabis, psilocybin mushrooms, salvia divinorum, ayahuasca, peyote. All these things were part of existing religious beliefs when that law was written. Okay? So even though, they might, Luciferian church didn't exist back then, so what you're doing is new. Well, my specific church might be new, but the practice of using these things to reach a spiritual enlightenment, or whatever, however you want to put it into words, that was in fact an actual thing when that law was written. Okay? And thirdly, the American tradition, which the American historical tradition is that, I can practice my religious beliefs so long as they do not violate your constitutional rights. Now, a very great example of a religious belief that violates someone else's constitutional rights is the Christian belief that all these things are evil and satanic. And therefore, they're going to try to stop me from being able to practice my religious beliefs. Okay, that would infringe on my rights. Now, you can believe it's evil all you want, and, you can practice that belief by not doing it. But the second that you try to take that belief and impose it on all of society, you have now violated the Constitution. You have violated my and many other people's civil rights. Okay? So that's where we're at, guys. That's where we're at in this. And there's a lot more, but we're already at 10 and a half minutes. I got the Black's Law Dictionary here to go ahead and, we could go line by line for hours through the Constitution and all these different terminologies and everything. Believe me, I'm getting studied up. But I just wanted to go ahead and just, take the time. Like I said, take the time out and go ahead and educate people, because we need it. We need to spread awareness. And, this fight isn't going to be won by one man. It's going to be won by public opinion. Unfortunately, that's just how corrupt societies work. And if you don't think that America's corrupt, you probably ain't living here.